I'm Bob Goff, and my guest today is Darrell HENZE, the former Quincy High School softball coach. Of course, last week he was dismissed from the program after a lengthy school board meeting, but you kind of knew what was happening going in, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, as I told people going into it that, it would be unprecedented for the school board to not follow the recommendation of the administration. I mean, I was hoping that maybe I could give them information to make them go, but typically you're not in a situation like that, especially since it was kind of in a short amount of time. Up until the time that I presented the information to the board, nobody had asked me to qualify any of it. So the only thing that the board had was the information that Lisa Otten had given them through the suspension letter.
And that was dated on January 24th, correct?
Correct.
And so you had no further meetings or anything with any school officials until you were at the board meeting. Was that correct, or you did?
No, I did not. I was banned from school property. I was told that I could not have contact with any of the players or contact with any of the coaches.
And then, so once you then, you went to the meeting, and you were sitting there where we were all kind of waiting to see what would happen, and then you got called back. And the school board was there. Were any other administrators there besides the school board?
Lisa Otten, Ryan Wicker, superintendent. Kimberly Wirt, I think she was
Kim
there.
Wirt, yeah, the board secretary, yes.
And then there was one other person that I don't remember, and then the school attorney.
Okay. Was the QHS principal, Jody Steinke, there?
No, he was not in the room.
So when you had the meeting with them and you were able to plead your case, I know you and I had talked briefly afterwards, you felt like maybe you weren't overly confident, but did you have at least a glimmer of hope after the meeting? Because you thought you had a couple people who,
I thought reading the body language when I left and watching, there was one board member, I can tell you right now, checked out early, who put down their pen, stopped taking notes, and sat back in the chair. I don't want to say female or
completely
male.
Understand.
But I felt like I had the attention of at least 4 of the remaining 5 through the entire thing. There was a lot of head nodding and like eyes opening and widening, and I'll be honest, there were a couple times I glanced over to the attorney and his eyes were wide. So I felt like when I walked out, or when Casey and I walked out, that it might be a 3-3 split. Or I felt like I was confident enough to think that there would be a 3-3 split, and I'm assuming the superintendent, if it had been, would have been the deciding vote. But
well, again, I mean, with also there were 6 members there because the 7th member, board member Jim Whitfield, was not in attendance. And a lot of times, what they will do is, I think they're just they take the recommendations, like you said. Normally, they just take these recommendations and run with it. I thought this was a bit of a special circumstance. I thought that perhaps they would, at least, again, be a little more understanding, if you will. Because again, in reading the letter that you provided to us, it seemed to me that they were more, it was the initial post, they weren't happy about, but it was you really didn't back down, and I think that's what kind of got you even more hotter. I think that's what turned up the heat on the water.
The only reason why I got fired is because I didn't say I'm sorry. That's the only reason. Nobody has said anything about or tried to prove what I said was wrong. The only reason why I was fired or let go is because I would not say I'm sorry.
Did the administrators, during your closed session meeting, did they say anything?
So when I met with them on the 23rd, and that was Lisa Otten, Jody Steinke, Chris Klingel, and myself, sat down, and Jody Steinke started. He leaned forward to the table and showed his phone. I could already tell he was angry, and said, "Did you post this?" And I said, "Yes, I did." And he said, "Is those your words?" And I said, "Yes, they are." And he said, nothing in that post is true. And I said, everything in that post is true. Tell me what's not true. I said, you know, I feel like there's been some deceit in this. I feel like information's been given to me and then not. I said, you yourself and Chris Klingel didn't even know about the third application that was submitted. Ryan Wicker did not tell you two that they made a third application or third submission for the life safety money. That's deceit. I mean, if we've got a line of communication and you're forcing us to go through the channels, you pass that information down. So when I got the letter, and what kind of caught me was one of the things she pointed out was my demeanor. Well, my demeanor, I feel like, is like what I'm right now. I never once raised my voice. I never once challenged anybody. I waited for them to ask me questions to qualify and give answers back where I was at, and nobody did. So, I mean, if demeanor is subjective, I mean, everybody's going to view it differently. For me, I did not feel like my demeanor was out of line. One of the things that was brought up was, or that I was being considered for dismissal, was for insubordination. Here's the fact. If you look up insubordination in the dictionary or on the school's own website that I printed off and gave to every member of the board, insubordination, including any failure to follow an oral or written directive. I was not directed to take my post down. I was asked if I would take my post down, and that's a big difference. Would gives you the option. Telling you to take it down, that's a directive. So then, and this is part that really gets me, is Lisa Otten highlighted one sentence out of a much larger context of where I said the only way to get things done around here is to throw bitch fits. Now, nobody asked me to qualify that sentence either. But what I said leading into that, I said for 10 years I have done everything that's been asked for me to do. I have gone through the proper channels. I have stood up for this school. I have stood up for this program. I have done what's been told me as far as what to do. I have asked repeatedly for certain things and denied. And I said, but it would seem that the only way to get anything done around here is to throw the biggest bitch fit. And so that being taken out of context and presented to the board, and then with the insubordination, that's when I decided about the week before, I think it was on a Wednesday or Thursday, before I reached out to Shelley Arns and asked and said, I cannot attend the board meeting as of right now. Would you be willing to lift that and let me attend the board meeting, and would I be able to have time to talk to the board? And she came back and said yes.
Okay. You also, when we were sitting there after we were waiting for the board to make its decision, and we were chatting there at the media table, and you also showed me your last couple of evaluations, and they were pretty glowing. It looked like you got good remarks from the then athletic director Matt McClellan, also from Jody Steinke and Todd Pettit. They all signed off on it, said, "Hey, good job, coach. Keep up the good work." So this is kind of, this was it's like taking strike one down the middle, and then they say, "Oh, you're out." Yeah. It's 1, 2, 3. So you guys were on your Club Muddy last week. We're discussing contracts.
Yes. And so one of the things that I learned from a professor in college was, no matter what happens, when you leave, whether it's your choice or you get fired from a position, you always ask for your personnel jacket, a copy of it, to take with you. Technically, you should review that once a year, just to make sure nothing gets put in there that you don't know about. That usually doesn't get done. But one of the things I've always done is anytime I leave, whether it's on my own or whatever, is to ask for copies of my file jacket. Now, your employees, we're talking like, if they went to their file jacket, is there a contract that they sign?
No, we don't have any contracts.
Okay. So I didn't ask for it that day when I left on the 24th because things were running through my head.
Sure.
So I emailed Lisa Otten the next day and asked her to send me a copy of my file jacket. I looked through my file jacket. I looked through all the copies. Two things are missing. None of my evaluations were in it, and there's no contract.
But you signed a contract. You never signed a contract.
I do not believe I ever signed a contract. So there is nothing in my file jacket that shows that I signed a contract.
And again, you were paid a stipend as coach, correct? As a part-time employee, you were not a faculty member, you're not a UPS staffer. You love the sport, you've coached a long time. I know you've had daughters who've been very good in the sport, and it's something you are passionate about. And this was something that and again, you had done 10 seasons, and then again, however you want to count COVID or whatever, but you've done 10 seasons. So, and again, without a blemish?
Without a blemish.
So
and just to go to the evaluations, and I knew, so I contacted AD Chris Klingle because I knew I only had 4 evaluations in 10 years, and asked her to go through her athletic file because I wanted copies of those evaluations. And of course, she only sent me the 4 because I knew there was only 4, even though you're supposed to get 1 every year.
But to Chris's credit, she did send you all she had.
She did send me all she had. Now, one thing I want to make clear to anybody and everybody, okay? Chris Klingle is not any part of this.
Well, she just got the job.
She just got the job. She is wanting and understands the need for changes. She is, I think Chris is, and I told her the day that I walked out the building, I said, you're perfect for the job, and I think you'll do well. None of this is any reflection on her or anything that she had to do about it. She could only go with what the information and the resources that are given to her.
Sure.
I also, some of the stuff we get into, you're going to hear another name, and that's Ryan Clare. Ryan Clare can only deal with and do what resources that are given to him. I don't have any ill will against Ryan. I think Ryan should answer directly to the board and not to Ryan Wicker, but that's just my personal feeling. But again, Ryan Clare can only do what he can do with the resources given to him, and it's strangled.
And Ryan Clare sat down with Matt Shuckman and myself shortly after this all went down and kind of gave a big explanation of the facilities, what had happened, the problems, the rotten poles, the whole 9 yards. And he gave us a really, and again, he's a guy who's relatively new in the job as well. They've had some turnover in positions, they've had some retirements, and people filled in, or in the athletic director's case, Matt McClellan went to become the VOTEC director, and then Chris got the athletic director job. So you've got people here who are sort of stepping up and relatively new in positions. But it didn't take anybody who's kind of paid attention to QHS athletics over the last couple of decades. The football or the baseball and the softball fields have really not been touched in 40 years.
No, as a matter of fact, so part of my frustration, okay, leading up to this, you tell me school supplied or Booster Club supplied infield dirt.
I have no idea. I know that just got done, though.
For the first time in 10 years.
Yes, correct.
What would you say if I told you that Booster Club has spent over $30,000 in doing nothing but buying infield dirt to make sure they have a safe playing surface, a quality safe playing surface, and a surface that would drain well enough in order to be able to get games in when it rained?
So that was all Booster Club funded, nothing from the athletic department itself?
There were 2 times that I recall in the past that the athletic department bought 2 semi-loads, both split half with baseball, half with softball. Now, I will say, and you can ask anybody that knows me, I am about the foundation. When I got there, it was a fishbowl. It would rain and it would hold water. And the only way, and you have to understand, we play on a very erosive field. I mean, you got wind erosion, water erosion, sun, everything that goes along with it. So when people see dust flying off there, it's dollars. I mean, it's not. So it's not about just being able to go, okay, let's go contract or see if so-and-so contract business has some black dirt that they can bring us.
Sure.
That doesn't work. It actually makes it worse.
No.
So the dirt that we get is actual infield dirt. It's a mixture of sand, clay, and black dirt. And depending on whether you have irrigation systems to keep it wet will depend on the percentages of the sand and clay with the black dirt. So our booster club over the past 10 years has paid out over $30,000, and I had been denied. I would ask and get denied. $30,000 for infill dirt, new bases, base pegs when we reset the pegs. For the first 4 years, we had to buy our own infield conditioner. Like if it rains, or you're supposed to condition, you're supposed to kind of condition your field every spring to get it ready. It just helps it drain. So softball, baseball had to buy our own infield conditioner and our own quick dry. That's basically, quick dry is a powder version of the infield conditioner, which makes it easier to soak up water in wet spots.
Sure.
Scott Douglas got that changed in, I believe it was 2019 or 2020. I was trying to remember that today. But before that, we were having to buy our own. So there's $30,000 just for that. Now,
one other thing I want to bring up, though, in terms of facility changes that I've noticed that I've seen over the last few years is the fact that there's the new concession stand storage facility. Who paid for that?
Concession stand storage.
Well, the brick building, they're not brick.
That was there before I got hired.
Yes. So that block building where that's where they keep the chalker and again, but it's concession stand. That's just baseball.
That's just baseball. Baseball has the back end of that so currently right now the conditioner and the quick dry sets on the west side. Baseball has access to store their 3-wheel unit, which they had to purchase on their own. The school didn't buy any equipment. The school has not bought any field equipment up until just here recently for work in the field. I bought all my own and then reconfigured it to fit my tractor that I use for working the field. But baseball has that behind the concession stand where the garage door, so they can put their 3-wheeler in it, the Toro machine. They've got their baseballs and their shovels and rakes and stuff that are hanging in there. But as far as softball goes, our chalker, our rakes, our hand rakes and stuff, if they're not in the dugout, they're in what we call the outdoor cage.
And again, just to reiterate that, you had used your own tractor and equipment. Then once you were dismissed, the school district bought equipment so they could fix the field, work on the field.
From what I understand, they bought a mat drag and a spike drag.
Okay, but whose tractor are they going to use?